12 teams 5 weeks ago started the journey to the postseason. And with each round, teams were knocked off from 12 to 8, 8 to 4, and now we are down to the final two teams. Two teams who have fought tooth and nail every inch of the way this season to get to the precipice, the ultimate mountaintop, the biggest game of the year, Super Bowl 53. The New England Patriots, 3 years in a row, joining only the Dolphins, and the Bills doing so, and the Los Angeles Rams for the first time since they were the St. Louis Rams back in Super Bowl 36. Who will win? Who will lose? What will be the factors? Well, we're going to talk about that for the next hour. Welcome to the Super Bowl 53 edition of the Blitz Zone. Hi, everybody. My name is Eric Rosen. I'm coming to you live from the studios of CTV in Staten Island, New York. With me tonight, these amazing gentlemen right here, starting with Mr. Jason Adam Hare. Thank you so much.
Glad to be here, Eric. Thanks for having me.
You're awesome. And, of course, returning for the first time in 2 years, Mr. Sean McDaddy Dennis.
Thank you. 2-year hiatus. Pleasure to be back. Listen, last time I was on the show 2 years ago, I did predict a Patriot win by 5. They won by 6. Yeah. What will happen this year? We'll see.
And I was the guy who predicted the Falcons, by the way, by 3 points. It was 30-27, and it could have been 31-28 if a certain somebody would have kicked it. But, hey, stuff happens. Now, the Super Bowl, this it's more than just a game. It's almost like it's a phenomenon that's taken over 50 years in the making. Jason, Super Bowl 53, what or just Super Bowl Sunday in general, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, Super Bowl, I'll be honest, it's my favorite day of the year, Eric. It's really nice. You get together with family, friends, you have food. It's just the whole experience is just, I love Super Bowl Sunday.
It is a great day because it's true. There is the food aspect. It's the second biggest glutton fest behind Thanksgiving. We all know that, especially with all the avocados, the 1.33 billion pounds of chicken wings consumed, most pizza, beer, chips, anything you can think of that's not good for you, that you love to have, all consumed on Super Bowl Sunday. And
quick note on this, because I saw the numbers.
Yeah.
$1.2 billion spent on beer. That's my
Wow.
favorite. $1.2 billion, $277 million on potato chips, but only $13 million on veggie trays. So come on, get a little healthy there. Start eating some veggie.
No.
But anyway, $1.2 billion on beer. I like beer. I'm done with dilly dilly. I'm sorry. I'm done with it. I don't want to see a commercial dilly dilly. If I'm going over your house and you're serving dilly dilly, I got to go on a beer run. I'm sorry. I'm going on a beer run this year, and it won't be Sam Adams because then it might suggest I'm rooting for the Patriots.
No, I'm a Yingling guy.
I like a little Yingling. That's nice. I might get a Guinness though, just so I could just say hey, the Irish drink Guinness because we play this game without equipment and without rules.
I like a good stout Guinness. How about you? What's your preferred beer choice?
Just a simple Corona. That's it. Simple. That's it.
Put some lime in it, or
Get a little lime in it. Yeah.
A little lime.
That's it. Yeah.
It goes good with the quesadillas. A little Corona.
Agreed.
Nice.
And the chips and guac, of course, which is guacamole, is great. In fact, they're doing an avocados commercial for the Super Bowl, and that's the other thing. Commercials, the funniest commercials you could ever see, and some of the most insane ones take place on Super Bowl Sunday. My favorite being the Doritos commercial where the guy's in the office and he takes the snow globe, breaks the machine, gets free Doritos, and then takes the snow globe and throws it at his boss's nads and finds out he doesn't have a job. Yeah. I don't know. Like, if you had to, your all-time favorite commercial that you...
I think I'm going to be very cliche here, and I'm going to go with the Budweiser frog commercial. That just, it's a classic. It really is. Wise? Love it.
Yeah, and of course the classic 1984 that Oliver Stone directed for the Macintosh computer is probably considered the standard bearer for not just a commercial, but how to make a commercial look like a movie. And nowadays the first Super Bowl, it was about 40,000. I think it was 140,000 for a 30-second spot, and now it costs $5.5 million. And
did you do that number? Did you do the numbers though? I thought about that on the way here to the studio, and I said, $5 million. Right, sounds like a lot, but there's 100 million people at least that are watching the Super Bowl. I think the record was 114 million viewers. So I thought of that and I said, all right, that's 20 people for every dollar, right, that you're spending. It sounds like a lot, 5 million, but you would know as an actor, right? You know, like, so if you were putting on a production, let's say, and someone took out an ad in your playbill, and you charged $100 for an ad in a playbill, you know, would you be able to guarantee that 2,000 people are going to look at that? You know, and that's really what this is about. It's 20 times. You figure 20 viewers for every dollar that you're spending. Granted, in the real world that we live in, 5 million seems like such a lot of money. But for these companies that are worth billions and billions of dollars, it's nothing. It's that's what they spend on the breakfast for the board meeting.
Well, your least favorite dilly, Anheuser-Busch, they're taking out 8 commercials for this Super Bowl. That's a lot of real estate right there that they're spending. And then Disney also is putting a lot of money also this year with a lot of the live action films that are coming out. So expect to see a lot of Dumbo, Captain Marvel, Lion King, Aladdin. But beyond the commercials though, like in terms of the game itself, you know, the fact that it was the first Super Bowl was a small game. It was in Los Angeles at the Memorial Coliseum. You had the Green Bay Packers versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Bart Starr was the MVP. You had the University of Arizona and Grambling State Band back then. And the average ticket was $10. Now today, it's in Atlanta, Georgia, at the new Mercedes-Benz Superdome with the only retractable top dome. $2,800 is the average ticket price. And this year, you got Maroon 5 along with Big Boy and Travis Scott as the halftime act. That's, you know,
$2,800. But they're being really nice to you. They're keeping their concession prices the same. So you can still get the $3 hot dog after you took out the pension loan to get your Super Bowl ticket. You know,
Cool.
that, and I like how you go to, and all I would want is Chick-fil-A, but Chick-fil-A, of course, keeping with tradition, they're going to close on Sunday. You can't get Chick-fil-A at the Super Bowl.
come on. It's one Sunday. It's the Super Bowl, for crying out loud. I'm thinking, you know, people love your chicken. You know, you know what? I'm not even trying.
You don't want to go there.
Don't go there.
Yeah.
No.
You know what?
It can only end poorly.
Yeah, you know, it is what it is. It's their decision, but, you know, Super Bowl memories. If you guys had to say, like, your favorite Super Bowl of all time that you've watched and why you like that Super Bowl, what would it be?
That's a good question. I honestly, last year's Super Bowl was very entertaining. I thought Nick Foles was a great story. And it was very exciting. I mean, I could always go back to the Giants Super Bowl. I mean, they were a huge underdog. I don't think anybody could have predicted that after the perfect season. So, honestly, every game except for that Denver blowout game, you know, that game sticks out. But as a game that I probably didn't enjoy as much. But really, just the anticipation, the experience. I love them all. I really do. Yeah.
And how about, like, if you...
Me, it's any Super Bowl that the NFC wins. I am very biased to the NFC. As a Cowboys fan, of course, it's easy to say the ones that the Cowboys won, but I enjoyed the '85 Bears. I mean, I was young, I was 14 years old, but to me, that was probably the best team that I saw play in my lifetime. And like the Bears held the Patriots to negative yards at halftime. They had negative. I mean, they gave up the quick field goal because they had a turnover early on offense. And then they just didn't look back. They blew them out of the waters. And I did enjoy a little bit of Joe Montana and Jerry Rice just destroying Denver after the 89 season. Because, again, it's an NFC team. So if Dallas doesn't get there, actually, you're a Giant fan. I actually rooted for the Giants twice against the Patriots. And I know people think, like, well, how can you be a Cowboy fan and root for the Giants? I'm like, because it's the NFC. And you know what? I'm biased to the NFC. So
I have to say Super Bowl 42. The fact that, yes, at that time, the Giants did play the Patriots Week 17. They did lose 38-35 in the final game of the season. But then they meet each other again in Super Bowl 42. And the Patriots have a chance to do something that hasn't been done since Super Bowl 7 when the Dolphins went 17-0 that year and beat the Redskins 14-7. That was the Yaro Yepremin game. Now you go years later to Super Bowl 42, the Giants are down 14-10. And Brady's marching down the field. The biggest third down play of the game. He's got 1, 2, 3 defenders trying to knock the daylights out of him, and he heaves the ball up in the air on a 32-yard completion to David Tyree, one-handed to his helmet, with Rodney Harrison, by the way, trying to get the ball out of his hand. And then 2 plays later on the back corner left fade to Plexico Burress, 17-14, they win probably one of the best Super Bowls. It was probably the most compelling. And to see Eli, following his brother from last year, win the MVP, which is something. That's never been the only brothers to win back-to-back MVPs. And by the way, the only brothers to play each other in a Super Bowl 47, the Harbaugh. That's another thing I love, too. 38-35, the Niners losing to the Ravens, and Flacco.
With the blackout.
Yes.
That lasted, it seemed like forever. I think it was about a half hour.
Yeah,
right? The
33
lights were out.
minutes.
33 minutes, yeah. And then you almost saw like the entire, like, just the momentum just left. And because the Ravens were taking it to them at that point. And then, you saw the 49ers. I think the blackout actually helped out the 49ers. They were able to get back into that game. I think the Ravens were just sitting around like, waiting for these lights to come on. It's like, and you could tell the defense of the Ravens. They wanted to get right back on that field. They're like they were itching to get back out there and clobber the 49ers and finish it off. And the 49ers got back into it, and it made it what would have been, I thought, a blowout. Made the Super Bowl pretty exciting.
Oh yes, another Super Bowl that really was the first Super Bowl 25. As a Giants fan, going back to the early 90s, they're playing the Buffalo Bills, a team that was basically, I think they were favored to win that year with Jim Kelly. And then all of a sudden, Scott Norwood, the nightmare never ending, the 47-yard wide right that Al Michaels called. 47-yard wide right, 47-yard wide right. He must play that in his head, Scott Norwood, over and over like a nonstop negative looping reel of madness, because imagine if you were him, like in that mindset, how would you feel knowing that you just blew your team's only opportunity to win a Super Bowl?
Being a professional athlete, not that I would know, but even just playing on a high school level, playing basketball and being there on the free throw line with the game tied with a few seconds left, your nerves, it's hard. Not everybody's cut out for this. And, as talented as you are, you have to be good in the big moment. And I think that's what separates a lot of these players.
And in fact, if the Bills would have won that, they wouldn't have the dubious distinction of being the only team to go to 4 consecutive Super Bowls and losing all of them. And twice where they got the crap beaten out of them by the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah. Like I said, you hit the nail on the head that they would have been the only team. They wouldn't have been the only team to lose 4 consecutive Super Bowls. They're still the only team to go to 4 consecutive Super Bowls. And then the Patriots are in their 3rd straight one now. That's an unbelievable achievement of its own. You don't realize how good those Bills teams were. And you are true. You're right when that, they probably could have won the game against the Giants, should have won it. And that second Dallas game, you remember Buffalo was winning at halftime, and it wasn't, when Dallas came out and Emmitt Smith took over. So it was the first Super Bowl against Dallas where they just totally got blown out. And I think the Washington Super Bowl, that was pretty much a blowout too.
And John Ripien was the MVP in that one. In fact, the Redskins even had some memorable Super Bowls too. They got their revenge on the Dolphins years later. They also, my favorite was the Doug Williams Super Bowl, 42-10.
That's a great Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I think that was probably was that the first Super Bowl African American quarterback to win a Super Bowl, I believe. I'm not, So it was a historic one. And Doug Williams, you look at his career, he didn't do much in Tampa Bay, but that was his shining moment. It was back in the 80s, but I do remember it was a blowout in Washington. Washington had Joe Gibbs had some really good teams. He really did, and he did it with different quarterbacks. He had different quarterbacks, whether it was Theismann, Williams, Ripken.
Don't bring up Theismann. No. This is like the 23rd we're over the 23rd anniversary of the most gruesome injury ever taken place. And in fact, Alex Smith suffered a similar injury this year.
It was horrendous.
Don't ever watch the video. Unless you want to lose your egos, do not watch that video. Trust me, it's not for the weak at heart.
Talk about gruesome injuries. In this playoffs, as a Cowboys fan, my son and me had that gruesome moment, the Allen Hurns injury in the Seattle game, where it looked like a Theismann. They're talking about him coming back next year. I don't know how. To me, that ankle, it looked like Kathy Bates, what she did to James Conn in Misery. I mean, that's the only thing I was like. It was a cringeworthy moment. And
I'm gonna get my wastebasket
yeah,
right
it was
now.
a cringeworthy moment. But yeah, you're right. The Theismann injury, I remember seeing that live when it happened.
Yeah.
Alex Smith, I did not see.
Yeah, you
Burns
do
I
not.
saw.
Do
But
not.
getting back to Gibbs, they were talking about some prolific coaches of the '80s, and it seemed like it was the big three. I mean, you could throw Dicker in there, but he only had the one Super Bowl win. But they talk about Parcells, Gibbs, and Walsh, and how they pretty much owned the entire decade. And it was one of those three that was winning it. But I think Gibbs, what he did, in many ways, because listen, Belichick is doing something that's historic, but he's had the same quarterback that whole time.
Yeah.
Gibbs, like I said, had different quarterbacks and won
yeah.
different Super Bowls with different quarterbacks. So he belongs up there in that top echelon of coaches, I think.
Oh, definitely. And, also another quarter coach that definitely, the guy who's trophy dons every Super Bowl for the longest time, Vincent Lombardi. And this was a local man, from Fordham University with the Giants organization, of course, back in the day, and then got to coach the Packers, had his isms, his beliefs, three things he believed: God, family, and the Green Bay Packers. And believe me, he had the Packers in two consecutive what they call the AFL NFL championship. And the fact that they beat the Chiefs with Hank Stram coaching against them and Len Dawson quarterbacking the team, and they beat the team, the Oakland Raiders at the time. It was wonderful to see the Green Bay Packers back in that day. And then, of course, it took them years to finally get back. Super Bowl 31, Desmond Howard, the only specialist ever to win the MVP award. And then Super Bowl 45, as beating the Pittsburgh Steelers. But all right, getting beyond the past of Super Bowl, now we're in the present. It's Super Bowl 53, LIII for Roman numerals. And the two teams that are here, the New England Patriots and the Rams, how did they get here? How did they get to this moment? Let's kind of delve into New England and the season that they had, because they were coming off losing to the Philadelphia Eagles, Super Bowl 52 last year, 41-33. They didn't have Brandon Cooks. He unfortunately got concussed. Then they traded Brandon Cooks, got something out of it, and made some moves. But for the most part, the Patriots, even without Edelman for the first four games, they won 2-2 in that time. But when he came back, what was it about Edelman being missed that, what is it about Edelman that makes this team run so well, Jason?
Yeah, I think overall, this is just a different Patriots team. I mean, they focused a lot on the running game this year, and I think that Tom Brady wants to prove something. This is the first time he's an underdog. I think that means a lot. You're hearing people say that he's getting towards the end of his career, and he has already stated he's going to play next year. I mean, I think this is a New England team that wants to prove something. They don't have the stars. I think Gronkowski lost his step. The receivers are questionable. I mean, they had, like you said, they didn't have Edelman the first few weeks. Hogan's really not done anything all year. They lost Josh Gordon, and people keep counting them out. But yet, they're always there at the end, and it's remarkable, honestly, watching what they're doing this year.
And not only, the offense definitely, of course, Tom Brady, the GOAT, plays a big factor, along with Belichick, the hood, and people are going to be wondering what color hood he's going to be wearing. But the defense...
That's a prop bet,
Yep.
I'm sure. I'm sure you could bet that in Vegas, what color hoodie he's going to have.
What color would you say?
Let's go with... Let's go with gray. I don't know why I always picture him in like the gray sweatshirt.
Because you got gray on that, right?
Well,
You're partial
It's
to
into gray, but maybe he should just come out with black, because he could look really like Emperor Palpatine. Then the real evil Emperor. Just put the black hoodie on.
Good.
Yes.
Evil. I want you to take him out. Use the dark side of the Force.
To add to what you were saying about the off season, because again, you're right. They lost. They traded Brandon Cooks, and you said they got something from. I believe it was Sony Michel, because they did get a first-round pick from him, and they drafted Sony Michel 31st overall. So I don't know if it was him or their other first-round pick. I think they drafted a lineman in the first round. But and then to Jason's point, how they're doing it differently this year. So you still have Edelman as the staple. They're running the ball unbelievably in these playoffs. I mean, these numbers just popped off the page. So like in the two playoff games, they have 8 rushing touchdowns. 8. And 7 of them from inside the 10. So when they get into your red zone, they finish it off. Whether it's Sony Michel, and he's got 5 of his own. Rex Burkhead, you saw him finish off the Chiefs. They pound the rock. And then since the Week 10 bye, and I pulled up these stats. So since their bye week, the Patriots, including the playoffs, are 6-2. That includes obviously the 2 wins in the playoffs. In their 6 wins, they've rushed for 1,110 yards in those 6 games. That's 185 yards per game. And this is with a team that has the GOAT, right? I mean, we're not even using Brady. We're running the ball. We're using Brady to get there in between the 20s, and then we're pounding the rock. And that could spell it's when like an immovable object meets an unstoppable force. So I would love to see the matchup between Sony Michel, James White, the running game of the Patriots against the 2 interior linemen of Donald and Sue, and are they going to be able to stop that run attack?
That's asking a lot, because the fact is, all 3 of them bring something to the table. These 3 running backs. What White brings, he's the back who can catch out of the backfield as well, especially on bubble screen passes, back shoulder passes. He is a nightmare in open space. Rex Burkhead can pound the rock. He's and then Sony Michel, he can go yard. So all 3 of them bring something different to the equation in terms of running the ball. But I think what we need to also look at too is the defense. Trey Flowers and Kyle Van Noy on that D line right there. They played a monumental part in these past 2 games in the postseason.
Yes.
And that, I think they could play an even bigger part in the Super Bowl. But yes, Stephon Gilmore, their shutdown corner, I think in the AFC title game, they held Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill to a combined 4 catches in that game. How difficult is that to do against those 2 players of their caliber, the season that they had for KC, which, by the way, congratulations, KC. I think we are seeing the birth of probably another dynasty in the making.
I hope so for Andy Reid. I mean, he's gotten there so many times, and again, everyone criticizes Andy Reid because he can't win the big game, but he made a good point in the press conference. He goes, "It is so hard. Like the media doesn't realize how hard it is to get there, and that's why this particular game is so important. Because whatever team you root for, when you get to this game, if you lose this game." The reason why it's so depressing is because you just know how hard it is to get back there. So when we're talking about New England makes it look easy, but New England's the exception. Whether you're a Giants fan, me as a Cowboys fan.
Thank you.
It's been a long time since you guys have been there, but
since bell bottoms.
It's so hard to get there. And what Andy Reid has done has been magnificent in Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes looks like a young stud, a young star, and here they were, Kareem Hunt. They get rid of him after he has disgraced off-field issues, and the offense is still churning. I think they have the best tight end in football now, and Travis Kelce. He's taken the mantle from Gronk. This is a good team. It really is, and honestly, this team would be there if Dee Ford was on side. On that 3rd down.
That's the thing too. So definitely with the Patriots and all that this year, the road record, the fact they won 3-5, they had some. But if you look at the combined points, I think it was like 11 points combined in those road losses, including the game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. That couldn't have been helped right there. That was that Keelan Cole catch. Then you look at the games in Tennessee and Detroit. Look who they have coaching them. Ex-Pats, an ex-Patriot player who was responsible for 3 championships, and the other guy who looks like the snow miser to me, coaching the Lions, but yet he had for the last 7 years, defensively has the inside track. So you knew right there, those games the Patriots most likely were going to lose at that point. But that is a good example for the Rams to take on if you want to win this game. Now, speaking of the Rams, the LA Rams, not the St. Louis Rams, but the Los Angeles Rams, back in the City of Angels the last few years. And Jared Goff, in his junior season, this was a team that last year lost in the wild card round to the Atlanta Falcons, rebuilded the team, got Brandon Cooks. You have Cooper Kupp coming in as well, and then you have C.J. Anderson in the last few weeks, but Todd Gurley, of course, doing what he does best for most of the year, pretty much second behind Zeke Elliott in terms of rushing yards and top 5 in total touchdowns. And yet, this team just keeps getting better like a like a fine wine. What is it about the Rams, Sean?
I think that they can spread you out, even with the loss of Cooper Kupp. But we mentioned, Cooper Kupp, if he was in this game, this might be a different, I think the Rams would be favored, and they started out as the favorite. Now they're a 2.5-point underdog. They can spread you out because, again, you got to respect Brandon Cooks and what he can bring, is he can take the top off the defenses. Robert Woods is kind of I don't want to say a poor man's Julian Edelman, because he's kind of right there. I mean, he had 86 catches this year. He's the reception guy. We had Cooper Kupp there, where Cooper Kupp was on pace for 80 catches, 1,100 yards, and 12 touchdowns before he went down. Josh Reynolds does some nice things. And they have two tight ends when they put them together, when they do Gerald Everett and Tyler Higbee together, combined, they can give you around that 55 to 60 catch range, 600 yards, 6 touchdowns. And again, you have Todd Gurley, who can do it all. The question in this game is, how much can he do? Is he healthy?
And how about the Rams defense? Because you got Wade Phillips. What is it about that defense in particular that is menacing?
See, the interesting part, I think a lot of their success is attributed to the way they're stopping the run now. During the season, they were actually averaging the most yards per game per running back, 5.1. And now they're only averaging to opposing running backs 2.3 yards. So and they face Ezekiel Elliott, who's arguably one of the best running backs in the game.
And the two-headed monster of Kamara and Ingram.
Exactly.
They did an excellent job at stopping them. Kamara did have his 11 catches out of the backfield, but I think he had like 15 yards rushing that game. He was non-existent in the run game.
And even Sue, I mean, you're talking about 1.5 sacks in the NFC Championship game. The whole season he had 4.5 sacks. Rams defense is showing up now, so they're clicking on all cylinders, and I think that's going to make this a very competitive game.
Definitely, and with both teams, of course, Rams won 13-3. We're second in the NFC conference. The Patriots won 11-5 in the season. All those losses were on the road. They were a perfect 8. Actually, make that 9-0 if you include the divisional round against the Chargers at home. But then they go on the road to KC in a very tough environment. And if it wasn't for D Ford going offside, also the questionable call with Julian Edelman on the punt return, the catch by Chris Hogan as well, that some people question, some things that went their way. They ended up winning 37-31 in overtime, because when Brady's got the ball in overtime, he ain't giving that ball up no matter what you try and do. You're not getting it. You're going to be sitting on that bench. Get used to it if you got Brady in overtime with the ball first.
On that note, though, because again, this offseason, Roger Goodell's going to be answering a lot of questions about the helmet-to-helmet hit on Cole. Coleman had on Tommy Lee Lewis, not Tommy Lee Jones, not the actor, and then I think the overtime rule is, while it's better, I still think it's not there. I still don't. I think Mahomes, the way he was playing, should have had a chance to get that ball. And again, I don't know why. It's the only sport I can think of that does that. Where, like, okay, if we kick a field goal, you get a chance to go. Can you imagine if they did that in baseball? Like, we're going to extra innings. If we score 1 run, you get up. But if we score 3, the game's over. I mean, or like in soccer, if you went to penalty kicks. If we score on our penalty kick, game's over. You don't even get a chance to touch the ball. I still think they got to address that. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know. I mean, I kind of like the college rules. I kind of like putting the ball 25-yard line, you go, the other team 25-yard line until one team scores and the other team doesn't. I think that's more exciting.
And then they should do alternate potato sack races. No, I'm kidding. No, but I do like the college concept.
Because you mentioned Patrick Mahomes in that game, you almost felt that whoever was winning that coin toss was going to go down the field, because that fourth quarter they were just going back and forth. Right. It was a track meet. The Chiefs were having their way with the Patriot defense. The Patriots were having their way with the Chiefs defense. So it almost seemed like, I even think if Mahomes had an extra 30 seconds at the end of the game, they might have won the game. They instead of going for the tying field goal, I think he would have put the ball in the end zone. And he was playing that well,
right.
And it's just a shame. I don't know what the owner's going to vote for, but I think both teams should at least touch that ball in overtime.
Well, speaking of, like I said, the Chiefs lost to the Patriots in the AFC title game 37-31 overtime, and then the NFC title game, the Rams defeated the Saints 26-23. It all came down to that final play, Nickel Roby-Coleman hitting a helmet-to-helmet, blatant helmet to helmet. Do you think that the NFL should expand instant replay to pass interference calls, or let the refs do their job on the field?
Yeah, I always used to hate taking away the human element aspect of the game, but in